Welcome to Gracefully Graying. I am your host, Attorney Henry Gornbein. Today on Gracefully Graying, I'm very pleased to welcome as my guest Michael Seltzer, who's a man of many hats, including the producer and host of The Franklin Show. Michael, welcome to Gracefully Graying.
And here's Franklin right here in my lap. And this is a kind of a cool thing. This is, kind of a crossover show, I think. You remember, the show Law and Order? There was a series called Homicide: Life on the Streets, and Richard Belzer was one of the stars of that show. And often throughout the run of Law and Order, they would cross over the two series, and the stars of each would appear on each other's shows. So this is kind of cool that you and I are having this interview today, me being on your show, and among other things, representing the show that I do, The Franklin Show.
It's interesting because a lot of shows are doing crossovers. I know another show called The Rookie does it with a federal FBI show. So, yes, there are a lot of crossovers done. Michael, why don't you tell us about your background? First of all, you had a firm called SKM Marketing. Tell us about that.
Well, I started in the advertising business when I was 20 years old, working for a small ad agency in the Detroit metropolitan area, and very quickly built a book of business with local retail. And it was suggested to me that I'd probably do better for myself if I went off on my own. So I started a company called Seltzer and Associates, and we were a small boutique advertising agency in 1977. With little ad agency accounts like Leo Adler Dotson and Worldwide Waterproofing and Hilf Appliance in Royal Oak, just small accounts. But we made a good living, and I learned an awful lot producing television, radio, and newspaper ads and developing ad campaigns. And as things progressed and my company grew, I decided I needed to take on some partners, and I had some folks that I had come to know who were doing my print support, and I invited them to partner up with me, and we created a company called SKM. And in the mid 80s, we launched into custom publishing. After being an ad agency and dealing with clients like Gardner White Furniture and First Optometry, which became Optimize, we branched out into custom publishing. I had an idea, and it was called The Great Chefs. And The Great Chefs was a calendar that I created, and it featured recipes from the best restaurants in the Detroit metropolitan area. We went to the Whitney and the Lark and the Golden Mushroom and Douglas, and we said, we're going to take a picture of a beautiful dish prepared by you, and we're going to feature this in a calendar with coupons at the bottom of the calendar so that the inference was you too can cook like the great chefs of Michigan. And we launched that program in 1984 for A&P supermarkets here in the Detroit metropolitan area. And the calendars were distributed on Thanksgiving Day, and they went through them. 300,000 calendars were gone in hours. And the program was a huge success. People loved this in-home billboard reminding people to shop at A&P. And so A&P called me and said, you know what? We like this so much. We want to do it in all of our stores all across the country. So in the next year, we were in New Orleans, New England, Toronto, California, wherever there were A&P supermarkets, we were producing great chefs of New Orleans, etc. And from there, the company just blew up. And within the next few years, we were producing custom calendars for every supermarket chain. We were producing health calendars for drugstores like Walgreens, and locally for Arbor and Perry Drugs. Our clients were Ford, Goodyear, Sherwin-Williams, Ace Hardware, True Value Hardware, Kmart, Kroger. We did business with everybody over the next 30 years. And I'm very proud. And you can still find SKM on the web, www.skmmarketing.com. I sold the company over 10 years ago and retired, and found my way into the world of volunteerism, which I have been proudly associated with ever since. So that's my SKM story. And it's a great organization. I had great clients, great employees for decades, and I'm very proud of the work that we did.
Sounds like it. Michael, what's interesting, you mentioned a lot of great restaurants in the Detroit metropolitan area, like the L'Arc du Glace, that no longer exist. So,
Correct. They're all gone. They're all
but
gone. I mean, I used to spend my life at the Golden Mushroom. Being in the ad business, that was an ad hangout. My offices were right around the corner at one time, and people would hang out at the Mushroom Cellar every evening after work. I lived during the glory days of broadcasting. We had all these fabulous reps and relationships and parties. These radio and TV stations took me on cruises, took me to Hawaii, took me to Aruba. Walked into my office with big screen well, not big screen, big TVs. They didn't have big screens back then, and stereos. It was a glorious, fun business that, frankly, Henry, no longer exists.
10 in Southfield, that was where the Golden Mushroom was, the Wing Hong. I had an uncle and aunt who had a jewelry store right at that intersection as well for many, many years.
Well, that
Called
was where
Lawrence.
my office was in those early days. Was right in Lathrop Village on Southfield Road. Then we moved to Northwestern Highway, and then we landed in the Knollwood Office Park in Bloomfield Hills, which was a half a mile from my homes, because at one point I lived in Bloomfield Hills, and then I moved to the village of Franklin. But we had an office located in that Knollwood Office Park for 30 years.
Michael, you are the host and creator of the Franklin Show. What caused you to create the Franklin Show?
So I'm currently, apparently, the longest serving trustee council person in the village of Franklin. I moved into Franklin in 1995. I jumped right into volunteerism, becoming a member of the Franklin Community Association, and then its president for over a decade. And in 2010, when there was an opening on the Franklin Council, I was asked to join the council. I have since been reelected 5 times, and last 2024 was the last election. And I continue to serve the village of Franklin as a member of the 7-member Franklin Village Council. When I was running for reelection in 2024, I thought to myself, everybody pretty much knows who I am, but I wanted to do something different as opposed to just campaigning. So I had this idea to do a TV show using my background in media and my beloved pet, Franklin, who's in my arms right here. And I thought, let's do a fun show, and we'll call it the Franklin Show, and we'll feature me and my puppy, and we'll interview Franklin people. We'll interview our new clerk or our police chief and entrepreneurs like Josh Linkner and people who are notable in our community. And it started on a whim, and it just blew up, you know. And because I have a long history in broadcasting, I've developed a lot of friendships with tons of media personalities. I had created something called the Detroit Radio Reunions back in 1988. This was an event that we did for charity, and we brought back all of the various disc jockeys and broadcasters who have since moved on outside of the city of Detroit and have had illustrious careers elsewhere. And in 1988, we started this event. We had it at the Michigan Inn, which no longer exists. Dick Purton was our MC. He's been our MC ever since. We've done dozens of these radio reunion events, raising money for charity and having a great time. And I decided I would sort of rekindle a lot of that in my TV show. So I've interviewed a number of famous disc jockeys and broadcasters. I've done tributes to great radio stations from our past, like Riff and ABX and Keener 13 and CKLW. And they're really fun shows. So the program has morphed from what was a Franklin Village centric idea into an international entertainment program. We won a national award. We're very proud of it. And it was selected among hundreds of entries as the best new local talk show. And so, I'm very proud and pleased to work with the folks at Bloomfield Cable. Great group of people. Carrie Lazat is my executive producer. Steve Rhoda and the great James Drum are a wonderful editor. So we've been doing, a show almost every week since last September. We've got a great array of shows, and you can find them on our website, which is also thefranklinshow.com, and they're on YouTube and they're on cable. And I've had great fun interviewing people from all walks of life. Whatever's interesting to me is what I try to feature on my show. We've done serious shows about the Holocaust, about Nova. We've done, campy, ridiculous shows. And I bring a lot of that satire to the Franklin Show. I have a fake band. I use Doc Severinsen. I use Paul Schaefer from the Letterman Show. I have a fake audience from the Ed Sullivan Show in the 1950s. Although we did an anniversary live in studio show just a couple of weeks ago, and it was a tribute to the Dick Burton team. I had Dick and his entire cast of characters on stage, and we talked for an hour, and it was a great show, and I did it live right there at Bloomfield Cable TV in front of a studio audience. It was a lot of fun.
Sounds like you have a lot of creative ideas, from advertising to the Franklin Show, and it's like your goal is you want to really cover the spectrum, and you're doing it. It's quirky, it's interesting, and
well, that was it. That was what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something that was unique and different and satirical. And I draw on my broadcast and media history, but I draw on things that I loved to watch, like Jiminy Glick, Martin Short, when he does interviews and he doesn't know who the guest is. He fumbles their names. He doesn't remember what they're famous for and stuff like that. I've done a lot of that. I've asked people what they'd like to be called, and then I call them something else. And it's a little bit of Fernwood Tonight, if you remember that series, and David Letterman, just very satirical and sarcastic, and it makes for a fun thing. And people say, well, are you going to interview me in advance? What are we going to talk about? I don't follow a teleprompter or a script. I hit the stage and I just go. And I will not make anybody uncomfortable, but my goal is to keep it very upbeat and contemporary and silly. And again, I'm playing to a fake audience. I'm calling out to people up in the cheap seats. There are no cheap seats. There are no seats. So that's my thing.
Very, very creative.
Yeah. Thank you.
What about your role as trustee? Are there any political issues? Clearly, there are no term limits because you've been around for a long time.
Yeah, well, I think they're rethinking that one for sure. Well, look, people who know me, and we are not political. There is no partisan politics in our village. We run a government, and I'm proud to say we run it efficiently. We have our own, in our 2 square miles, the village of Franklin, 3,000 people. We have our own police department, our own fire department, our own building department. Everything that we do is self-governed. It's quite unique. And, it's a cherished zip code. I'm very proud to have been a member of that community for 30 years. And we lived in a historic home that was built in 1840. So I'm a preservationist. But we have stuff, man, like any other community. There's all kinds of stuff. And controversies, you bet. I mean, just go and watch one of our meetings, which occur every month. And, I've been on this council for a long time. I've seen a lot of people come and go. I've served under 4 or 5 different village administrators, 3 police chiefs, countless numbers of clerks and personnel. But what makes us great is we are a very strong volunteer community in Franklin. We have all these organizations, the Franklin Community Association, which I proudly ran for over a decade. No one had ever been president more than 1 year in the FCA, and I was the president for 11 years. And we have Mobile Watch, and we have a historical society, and we have a library, Friends of the Library. So it's a great, great community to live in, and I'm just proud to have been able to make contributions throughout the years that I've been here.
It sounds like you do not lead a dull life. Now,
No.
you're on the board of directors of Temple Israel. Tell us about that.
Well, I love my Temple Israel. In fact, one of my favorite rabbis, Josh Bennett, was just here in Arizona, which is where I am now, for a wedding for one of our very, very good friends. It was his. He comes to Arizona quite often because his son actually is going to school here at ASU. But I'm very proud of Temple Israel. And I'll tell you where that started. In 1992, my father passed away fairly suddenly from a lymphoma. And we walked into David Techner's office at Ira Kaufman, my wife and I. And David Techner said, "Are you affiliated?" And I said, "No, we just hadn't settled anywhere." And he picked up the phone and he called Rabbi Loss at Temple Israel. And he said, "We have a family here that needs a home, and I think this would be a great place for the Seltzers." So David and Rabbi Loss came over to our home in Bloomfield Hills. I had an 8-year-old son, Justin, who loved my dad dearly and was afraid to go to the funeral because he just didn't understand what was happening.
Sure.
And I was talking to Rabbi Loss and David about that. And Justin walked into the room and he introduced himself, or they introduced themselves, and they said, "Do you mind if we go play with Justin?" And I said, "Not at all." So they took his hand and went up to his bedroom and came down 15 minutes later and said, "Justin is very much looking forward to putting on a nice suit and getting into a nice black limousine and going to say goodbye to his papa." That really struck me, and I was so emotional over the ability of the two men to go up there and talk to my son and make him feel comfortable. I immediately joined Temple Israel. My mother became very involved. She was in the choir for years, and she was also a volunteer at Temple Israel. And then they asked me if I would consider joining the board, which I did, and I've been on the board for, I don't know, 7, 8 years now. I love our temple. There's nothing like Temple Israel. We are the largest Reform temple in the country with over 5,000 families. And every member of that clergy is special to me. I just dearly love them. So,
I agree wholeheartedly. It's the second largest in the world. Believe me, I think there's a larger one, I think, in Australia, according to Rabbi Bennett, I believe. And, I've interviewed many of the clergy, and, they're just wonderful. And the services, it's like going to a musical, really.
You bet. And I'll tell you something, Henry, being out here in Arizona now, I'm struggling to find a home. And Josh suggested a particular temple, and I went there last weekend, and it was good. It was good, but there is nothing that compares to the musicality, the feeling, the sense of being in our congregation at Temple Israel. Now we can stream it, so we are streaming it. That's a new thing that everybody has fallen into, good and bad. We like to have tushies in the seats,
Right.
And so after COVID, it was quite a struggle to get people to come back to Temple. But boy, oh boy, we're back. We fill them up. The High Holy Days are beautiful. I usher at all of those services, and I love it. So it's very, very difficult to find anything comparable to Temple Israel. And like I say, the clergy, no one ever leaves, man. These folks, we have the largest clergy because we have such a large temple. And every one of them is a shining star. They're just fabulous, all of them. And I love being there. So
the beauty of it, I'm sure you're aware of it, but none of them have a written contract. It's just,
yeah,
they come and they stay.
and they don't leave. Look at Rabbi Loss retired, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago. He's there every week. He's there every week. He's the Rabbi Emeritus. I don't know how you pronounce that. emeritus, but he doesn't want to leave, so none of them do. They they claim there are a couple of the younger ones now that are claiming they will retire. We'll see how that goes. So far, it hasn't happened.
It's interesting. I mean, with Rabbi Laws, I know for Yom Kippur, for Kol Nidre,
Yeah.
he had to pinch it because Rabbi Hornstein had COVID. So, and he did a beautiful sermon.
Yeah. That pinch hit. Like I say, there's hardly a time when you go to Temple Israel and don't see Rabbi Loss there. So, retirement means different things to different people. I retired over 11 years ago. And the first thing my wife said, I was very young, I was 58. And my wife said, "What are you going to do?" Well, one of the first things I did was I looked at the ring on one of my hands, which was my father's Mason ring. And I said, maybe I should become a Mason, which is a phenomenal organization of men who do charity, and it's a brotherhood, and it is not a religious organization in any way. They asked me if I wanted to be blessed on a Bible or on a Torah, and I said, on a Torah, please. And I am very, very pleased to have been a third degree Mason for a number of years, and I brought up other brothers in the village of Franklin. Our president, David Goldberg, has become a Mason. Another strong member of our community, Randy Brakeman, has become a Mason. I brought those brothers into the organization. And so I'm a Mason. And I've devoted myself to all kinds of charities. I work at Yad Ezra, the food bank, which we give away tons and tons of food to people in need. I deliver Meals on Wheels. I deliver challah from Temple Israel on Fridays. And in Arizona, I do all the same things, Meals on Wheels. And the Jewish Family Service has a great organization here, and I'm a volunteer for that. So I've kind of devoted myself to volunteerism. Being a council member is a volunteer position, and all of the other things that I do for various organizations, be they Jewish or not. I have served at soup kitchens, and wherever there's an opportunity to help people, I like to make myself available.
My next question is, Michael, you're in Arizona much of the year. What do you do in your spare time while you're in Arizona? Or are you too busy volunteering?
No, 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 no. I love my life here. I hike every other day. We have so much of a great community here in Arizona. We stumbled into a condo complex with 400 units about 8 years ago, first as renters, now as owners. And we have a whole different life here, a whole different group of friends that we've not known for decades, but we've come to know and to love, just like you do when you're in a social community of a lot of retirees. Now, it's not just retirees. We have families here. We have a large Orthodox Jewish community right here in our complex. And yesterday, in fact, I was taking Franklin out in a stroller because he's not supposed to walk right now. He just had some surgery, and he was in a stroller. And I go to the mailboxes, and there's three different Orthodox families with all their kids in strollers getting their mail. And it's a pleasure to walk around and know so many people. I know you'll be shocked by this, but I'm also the president of our HOA here at the plaza in Scottsdale, proudly serving this community for the past 6 years, 4 of them as president. And we love our life here. I'm a hiker. My wife is a hiker, pickleball, hanging out at the pool with all our friends, playing canasta in the afternoon. And then it's happy hour, and where do you want to go to dinner? It's a great, easy life, and it's sunny, and it's warm, and you don't have to think about rain, and you sure as hell don't have to think about snow. So it's a great, great community that we found here, and I'm very happy to be here.
Michael, you mentioned someone. I don't think you've introduced us. Is Franklin in your lap right now?
He is. He's right here.
Yeah, that's what I thought. What type of dog is Franklin?
Franklin is a Maltese, and we adopted him in 2016 at the Franklin Village Labor Day Roundup. which, as you know, is a historic event now 80 years strong. And among the many things that occur at the Roundup is a pet adoption area. And I'm used to walking through the pet adoption area every year, waving at constituents and visiting with friends and chit chatting. And one year, my wife and I were walking through after the parade, and we see this little guy in a cage. And I said to my wife, "Look at that boy. He's so cute." And she goes, "Yeah, he is." And I go, "You know what? I want him." And now we had not had a dog. We had been married 49 years, two of the happiest years of my life. But we never had a dog. We always had cats because they were easy to manage, and our kids, didn't want to take care of a pet, so we had to. But anyway, we saw Franklin. He took him out of the cage. He jumped all over me. It was instantaneous love at first sight, and took him home. And it was life changing for me. I'm a dog guy now, big time. So the next year, just by happenstance, I'm at the Franklin Roundup, as I have to be every year and enjoy to be, walking through the adoption with Franklin, showing him off to the folks that own the adoption company, Home Forever, FUR, Home Forever, great organization. And we see another little white puppy in the cage, and he's a Shih Tzu, and his name became Winston when we took him home. So now I have Franklin and Winston, which is a nod to history, Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Winston Churchill, who were very close friends for obvious reasons. And I couldn't be happier. And I am a big dog adopter support guy. It is a beautiful thing to do. I know people that spend a lot of money to buy a dog. I understand, but there are dogs out there that need a home, and they are just a treasure. And if you can give that kind of second chance to a puppy, it's an amazing thing. I don't know what happened in Franklin's first 5 years, but I know the last 9 years has been nothing but love, unconditionally, between he and I, my wife and he. Anybody that sees Franklin loves him. He's a great, great dog, and hence the Franklin Show.
Michael, are you allowed to go to the Franklin Roundup this coming fall?
I know that's what my wife said after the second adoption. Oh boy, we can't do this every year. Well, you know what? I would if I could. Honest to God, if I could adopt so many of these guys, they are just lovely men and women.
Michael, before we wrap up, what advice would you give to our contemporaries, those of us who are gracefully graying, about living life fully?
Hey man, as David Letterman said when he was interviewing Warren Zevon, famous musical genius, I was in that studio the night that Warren Zevon was a guest on David Letterman's show. And it was the most somber hour because, as you may remember, Warren Zevon was dying of cancer. And Letterman was a huge fan, had him on the show for the full hour. It was not a typical David Letterman show. And he asked Warren about that. And Warren Zevon's response was, "Enjoy every sandwich." Now, I mean, that touches you, right? For me, I have, and my mom used to say, "Man, you don't let any grass grow under your feet." I have always been extremely passionate, extremely enthusiastic, and upbeat about everything that I do. I do nothing that isn't uh, energetic and filled with enthusiasm, and I'm continually finding things to do like that. I would tell people who are considering retirement and are nervous about it. I ran a company for 40 years. And yeah, the first 6 months after I retired were a little bit crazy because I'm used to being the captain of industry, people coming into my office needing advice and a signature and an approval and whatever. And suddenly you find yourself a little bit lost. Dig into volunteerism. There are so many great organizations that need people that have skill sets, either their business acumen or their media background or whatever it might be that you have, that you did well, you can find things to motivate and to help other people. And that's what I do. And I just never stop. I'm a traveler. People often say, kind of like, where's Waldo? Where are you this weekend? My wife and I have been to everywhere in the world. I'm fortunate to be able to do whatever I want to do. And we've developed lots of friendships all over the world. We are big fans of Van Morrison, who just turned 80 this past August. We were in Belfast, where he lives, for his 80th birthday. We were with people like Ronnie Wood from the Rolling Stones and many others. I've always been a guy who just goes, go, 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 because you just don't know. Tomorrow isn't promised, right? So do the things that you can and want to do. Don't be afraid. Travel is so great. I've been to Israel. I've been to Italy. I've been to France. I've been to England. We've been everywhere, and we have favorite places all along the way. And I urge people to follow their dreams, follow their heart, enjoy your family, enjoy your friends. But there's a great big open world out there, and you should take as much advantage of that as you can.
Michael, well stated. We're out of time. You are a prime example of someone who is living life fully, which is the tagline for Gracefully Graying.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for being our guest on Gracefully Graying, and you're clearly proud of the Franklin Show and everything you do. And I want to thank Bloomfield Cable and, of course, our sponsors for making Gracefully Graying possible. Thank you again, Michael.